Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a complicated stack of articles and research, find those fundamental insights, and deliver them right to you.
And today we are really digging into a core redefinition of leadership.
Yeah, we're talking about moving from this really outdated idea of ownership to the much more empowering practice of stewardship.
Right.
And if you're a leader, I mean, you have almost certainly felt this. It's that subtle kind of exhausting pressure that builds up,
Mhm.
the feeling that everything really depends on your personal oversight, that you have to, own every single result.
It's this quiet belief that real leadership means holding on as tightly as you possibly can.
Exactly. But here's the surprising and, frankly, uncomfortable truth we pulled from the sources. The greatest leadership failures, they don't come from losing control.
No, not at all. They come from trying desperately to keep it. That instinct to protect and control is the very thing that stifles your team.
And that's the core tension.
That's it. So our mission for you today is to really get the practical difference between these two mindsets. Ownership is about possession. It's mine.
Right.
Stewardship is totally different. It's about deliberate, accountable care. Holding responsibly, not just holding on.
And this isn't just theory, right? This is urgent.
It is. The pace of change today it's outstripping any one person's ability to control everything. Talent expects empowerment now, not micromanagement.
So the question you have to ask is, am I a controller or am I a caretaker?
That's the whole deep dive right there.
Okay, so let's unpack that. I mean, why is this ownership idea so deeply ingrained in us?
Well, it's history. It's culture. You can trace a direct line from, ancient monarchs and feudal lords all the way to industrial magnates and today's idea of the modern mogul.
Even our language gives it away. We say my company, my employees, my vision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The leader's identity becomes fused with what they possess. The CEO isn't just the leader. They're seen as the owner of the company's entire direction.
And that's a really alluring model.
Oh, powerfully alluring. There are basically four reasons leaders get stuck here. First, it gives you this illusion of security.
Right. If I control everything, I reduce uncertainty.
That's the thinking. Second, it confers status and identity. I mean, the corner office, the special parking spot, it's all about material possession. It feeds the ego.
Okay, that makes sense.
Third, and this is the deceptive one, it can feel really efficient in the short term. Decisions are fast because they're centralized.
No need for a committee, you just make the call.
You got it. And fourth, it plays right into that cultural hero narrative, the visionary founder who built it all by themselves.
But at its core, it's all driven by a fear of loss.
That's the root of it, a fear of losing power, which feels like losing a part of yourself.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. The long-term cost of clinging to that model.
The cost is immense because that protective instinct, it just stifles everything.
It creates bottlenecks. That's the first thing.
Huge bottlenecks. When you centralize decisions, you are actively training your team to wait for permission instead of taking initiative.
So you start hearing things in meetings like, well, I've got to check with the boss first, or we're just waiting for the green light.
And the consequence is devastating. You lose creativity, engagement plummets, and you miss opportunities because the whole organization is only moving as fast as its most controlling leader.
And this leads to the biggest vulnerability of all.
Succession planning. It becomes almost impossible. If one person owns all the knowledge, all the relationships, all the vision.
The whole thing collapses the moment they leave.
Exactly. You've made yourself indispensable, and that is the absolute definition of a leadership failure.
So to break free, we have to look at a totally different model, one that's actually, ancient.
That's right. It's not newism. It's perfectly crystallized in Jesus' parable of the talents.
Right, from Matthew 25. The setup is what's so important here. A master is leaving on a trip, and he entrusts his property to 3 servants.
Yes, and we have to pause on that word, talent.
It wasn't just a coin.
Not at all. The sources are clear. 1 talent was about 15 years' wages for a laborer.
15 years. So we are talking about a massive amount of responsibility.
A huge amount. And the critical detail is that the property never belonged to the servants. They were just temporary custodians. Steward.
What's the whole point? They were supposed to manage it, not possess it.
And look at what they do. The first 2 servants, they show this dynamic engagement. They take prudent risks. They trade, they invest, they multiply what they were given.
Their reward comes from that multiplication. They doubled it.
Yes. And then you have the 3rd servant.
He just buries it. He's operating out of fear, static preservation.
And his descents to the master says everything. He says, here you have what is yours. His whole focus was just not losing it. He saw it as a liability to protect, not a resource to invest.
And the master's reaction is intense. The expectation was clearly multiplication, not just maintenance.
That is the core difference right there. Ownership tells us to protect the status quo. Stewardship calls us to grow, develop, and advance everything we're given: ideas, resources, and especially people.
So when the master calls him wicked and slothful,
It's a huge judgment. It shows that failure in stewardship isn't just a missed opportunity. It's a serious dereliction of duty.
wow, all for just playing it safe. It implies real faithfulness requires you to take some risks. So how do we apply this? How do we shift from control to care?
We need a practical way to look at our own leadership, because these ownership habits are sneaky. The sources talk about a leadership inventory.
Okay, like a self-assessment.
Exactly. A way to spot where ownership is lurking, often disguised as just being diligent.
Let's break down a few key areas then. First up, empowering teams.
Right. An owner sees employees as resources to be used for their vision. A steward sees them as fellow image bearers whose growth is actually central to the mission.
So what does that look like in practice? It's more than just handing off tasks.
It's the delegation of authority, not just tasks. That's the key phrase.
Meaning?
Meaning you don't just give someone a checklist, you delegate the decision-making space they need to succeed. An owner says, design this campaign. A steward says, achieve this sales goal with this budget, and then trust the team to figure out how.
That requires a lot more trust.
A lot more, but it unlocks massive initiative.
Okay, that makes it really tangible. What about conflict? How does a steward handle conflict differently?
The owner wants to win. They impose their will, enforce the policy, maintain control. A steward seeks reconciliation. They prioritize the long-term health of the relationships over just being right.
They're caring for the people, not just the org chart.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And finally, there's personal stewardship. Stewarding yourself. You can't lead an organization well if you're a wreck.
Right. Your physical, mental, spiritual health.
It's all part of what you've been given to care for. And time. Time is that huge, non-renewable resource.
We have to see it as an investment.
Yes. Not something to be hoarded or just spent. This means intentional scheduling. You block out time for deep work, for rest, for connection, and you treat it as a vital investment, not a luxury.
So a good gut check question is to ask yourself, which decisions am I making to protect my comfort rather than to advance the mission?
If the answer is self-protection, you know ownership is creeping in.
Let's talk about the dark side of that, of clinging to control, the my way mentality.
It creates a closed system that just cannot adapt, and it leads to 3 major pitfalls.
And the first is one we all know and hate, micromanagement.
The silent killer of productivity. The owner-leader delegates the task, but then they hover constantly.
Demanding endless reports, overriding tiny decisions.
Yeah, and it just signals a profound lack of confidence. It destroys psychological safety. People learn to just wait for instructions.
And that leads right into the second pitfall.
Catastrophic burnout.
Yeah.
The owner-leader carries this unbearable weight because they feel personally responsible for every single outcome.
A weight no single person was ever meant to carry.
They get isolated, exhausted, and eventually just cynical.
And the third one is the most dangerous.
Ethical lapses. When your whole identity is wrapped up in my company, the temptation to cut corners to make sure it survives becomes overwhelming. You're driven by scarcity and self-preservation, and integrity is usually the first casualty.
So, okay, how do we fight this? What are the actionable mindsets we can cultivate?
It's a daily, conscious practice. First, daily acknowledgement. You have to start your day by reminding yourself, this mission, these resources, these people, they belong to God. I am just the steward.
That simple reminder can take so much weight off your shoulders. A practical tip we saw was to just put a sticky note on your monitor that says, God owns it all.
It's about shifting from self-reliance to divine reliance. The second practice is holding loosely.
Meaning?
It's a conscious mental effort to release your grip on specific outcomes, to do your best work, and then trust God with the results. It's the exact opposite of that anxious, clutching control of the third servant.
And the third mindset?
Embrace the abundance of God. When you feel overwhelmed, which is really just a scarcity mindset taking over, you have to consciously shift your reliance from your own limited energy to God's infinite abundance. If you truly believe God provides, why are you so afraid to delegate?
This has been, well, it's been profound. And I think the big takeaway for you, the listener, is just how liberating this is.
It really is.
When you stop trying to own everything, your team, your success, your failures, You are instantly released from that crushing burden of ultimate responsibility. The anxiety just, it goes down. And you're protected from burnout.
And the payoff for the organization is huge. Stewardship fosters trust.
Yeah.
It creates high engagement because people feel cared for, not just used. It builds a natural succession plan because you're developing people.
Ultimately, all the resources get pointed toward the mission, not toward protecting a single person's ego.
That's the goal.
But this redefinition, it takes courage, it takes humility and faith. It's not a switch you flip, it's a continuous journey.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to carry with you. If every leadership decision you face this week, hiring, budgeting, conflict, were evaluated not by how much control it gives you, but by its faithfulness to the master's purposes, what would change?
What would change in your priorities, your strategies, and your daily habits?